Hello and welcome to JamHammer. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at all of the amazing upcoming 40k releases that were announced on Warhammer Day. This annual event was particularly significant this year as it's been 35 years since the very first iteration of 40k, Rogue Trader, was released in 1987. To celebrate such a monumental milestone, Games Workshop were kind enough to grace us with some very exciting model reveals as well as a new narrative expansion. I'll be ranking and reviewing these previews in order of personal preference, but I'll start off by saying that these are all pretty sweet and it was difficult to put any one of these above another. Still, we'll start at the bottom of the list with number 4, the least interesting for me, Lord Invocatus. I do love me some chaos, but I've never fielded a World Eater's army, so this one doesn't rank too high for me unfortunately. It's great to see neglected legions like Khorne getting some attention though. The new Berserkers that were announced earlier this year look truly terrifying with their butcher's nails on display, colossal two-handed chain weapons, and gothic armour. It was high time they were updated as the current ones are some of the oldest minis still in circulation. So much so that I had them in my old Black Legion army way back when, in 2003. The release of this Lord Invocatus model has also led to rumours that more releases could follow, particularly of new Khornate Juggernauts being announced in the near future. Apparently, this named character was mentioned in the earlier 8th edition Codex for Chaos, but isn't one I'd heard of before. I'm not personally a huge fan of named characters, ever since I led poor Commissar Yarrick to die at the hands of like 3 measly orc boys in a campaign at my local gaming store. I prefer to invent my own characters and explore how their narratives unfold rather than use one of Games Workshop's. The model itself is fantastic though, with a real sense of movement in the sculpt as it tears across the battlefield. The melding together of machinery and demonic flesh on the beast itself is fantastic, and that chainsword horn just looks wicked. Plus, it harkens back to the good old days of the chunky metal Khorne Lord charging into battle astride a Juggernaut. Number 3 was a particularly tough one to choose, but eventually I settled on the Shadow Vaults box set. I was absolutely thrilled by this initially, as I'm really enjoying playing Kill Team at the minute, but this preview was announced very quickly after the release of Into the Dark. Not even had time to look into that set yet, when new rules and teams are already appearing on the horizon. Though, Games Workshop does release these major expansions quarterly, so it is to be expected. I was also surprised that this release is another one to feature a guard team. Considering how many billions of us humans there are in the 41st millennium, I guess we would pop up a lot, but it's a shame that folks who collect, say, Drukhari or Tyranids have been missed out so far. Don't get me wrong, guard are great. More on that later. But by my reckoning, there's been 6 of these releases for Kill Team 2nd edition now. If we count the Bloodied 2, that means 4 out of these 6 feature a guard team, including the previous Gallodark release. They are all varied though, with veterans, traitors, and now Kazakin bringing different flavours of aesthetics, loyalties, and equipment respectively. Plus, it looks like Games Workshop are adding some interesting new elements to this close quarters playstyle, with things like turrets and saw arms to add some extra strategy. I was also excited to see a Necron kill team, the Herotech Circle, as well as them bringing back Kazakin. If you've been following along with the Imperium series, then you'll know I'm building a Necron army, so it was great to see that they'll be getting some new rules for Kill Team to update the current Tomb World list. On closer inspection of the minis though, they look incredibly reminiscent of what's already available for purchase. The Cryptek Technomancer is identical right down to its ambivalent gesture of peace. The death marks are the same sculpts too, albeit with a new head option, as is the Despotek, who seems to be a fancy immortal with a Gauze Blaster, not unlike the Royal Warden mini. Like a lot of the new releases for Kill Team, if you look at the sprues being released in this set, the Herotech are a composite of already available minis with some new accessories. This isn't exactly a problem though, as it means that most Necron players, or Imperium magazine collectors such as myself, now have the makings of a Kill Team ready to go, but it does make it difficult to justify purchasing another new box set. The same could be said of the Kazakin. The models are very similar again to those old metal sculpts. But that chunky carapace armour, the wired-in hotshot lasguns, plus those cool rebreather masks just conjure up so much nostalgia for these great minis that are no longer available to purchase. It's amazing to see these return, as I always liked the idea of using specialist squads to carry out particular missions in 40k, though this often didn't play out in practice, and it was a shame that they were not often a presence in guard lists as a result. It looks like this will be a multi-part set with plenty of customization options, including the parts to make specialists like a sharpshooter and a demo trooper for use in Kill Team. Checking out the sprues, and I can see 2 of each standard special weapon, including hotshot volley guns, a power sword, and a plasma pistol for kitting these out for games of 40k. So a nice update on the old mono sculpts, and hopefully some interesting new rules too to make these worth taking. The Elite Stormtrooper role being re-released as Kazakin is promising though, as it means we might be able to integrate these units more easily into our Astra Militarum armies again, as opposed to the Militarum Tempestus. Before moving on, I just want to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to Tim L for being the first person to donate to JamHammer. If you're enjoying this video and would like to contribute too, then you can find links to a PayPal wallet in the description below and on the channel banner. Any donations will be very gratefully received and put towards making more content like this. On to number 2 then, and it's the next stage in the unfolding narrative of contemporary 40k, Arcs of Omen. There seems to be a lot of heat around Space Hulks at the moment, and this is exciting stuff. This again is some classic nostalgia, as the early board games and computer games from Games Workshop often featured this creepy setting. It makes for some very compelling narratives, and I'm intrigued to see how they make use of this for some intense firefights aboard these great drifting derelict vessels. In particular, this campaign features the biggest of the baddest, Abaddon the Despoiler, and his enduring campaign to gain control of the Imperium Nihilus. It's great to see that Games Workshop have announced that this expansion will be solely standalone rules, and will not influence our standard games of 40k. It demonstrates that they have listened to the community, as we're often justifiably frustrated at having army rules spread across multiple books. The expansion looks to be self-contained, and presents us with a new game mode, allowing us to bring whole armies into the crushing claustrophobia of a Space Hulk. Very much tying in the recent releases and previews from Kill Team and integrating them into games of 40k. This is all pointing towards some gripping, high-stake battles between the Loyalist forces and their arch-enemies. And finally, number 1, come on, it's got to be that brand new army set for the Astra Militarum, Cadia Stands. I always loved the Guard. To see the future of humanity assaulted on all sides by demons, murderous machines, slathering aliens, and a whole host of other grimdark monsters looking to tear them asunder. But armed with an Imperial primer and a flashlight, they stand firm against the forces of darkness. It's just damned inspiring stuff. And now looks like a better time than any to get into building a Guard army. The newly redesigned Cadian shock troopers are incredible. I think there are hints that they've lent on other aspects of sci-fi in their new sculpts, particularly that of Colonial Marines from the Alien franchise.
Absolutely badasses!
They're similar enough to previous iterations that we can see how they've evolved over the years, with elements from the old metal minis, through to the now outdated plastic set, to these ones. It surprised me that they've been released now after the recent update where Games Workshop added another sprue containing more head and special weapon options. This led me to believe that Guard will be passed over once again. It looks like we're getting loads of customization as standard with these new ones, and we can see options for plasma and melter gunners now, finally, thank the Emperor, come as standard. The uniforms and faces are so much more detailed and with more believable stances and expressions. Plus, all this flexibility allows us to represent a greater panoply of the peoples who are defending the Imperium. Also included in the set are the new veterans in a command squad with parts to build melee experts, medics, and standard bearers as we've come to expect. Plus, there's some really characterful additions here with extra accessories like the retro sci-fi comms unit, and a head chewing a cigar for extra badassery. The field ordnance battery pieces are astonishing models too. Each base looks like a mini diorama in itself, and I can't wait to see the new rules for these, just to see how devastating these enormous weapons are. My only concern is that these cardboard armoured operators are looking mighty flimsy, and I'd hate to see them obliterated from the table before they got a chance to bring these guns to bear. Outside of the army set, Games Workshop also announced some more updated Astra Militarum units. The new Commissar Mini is looking much more toned down than the current model, with an austere pose and a, thankfully, more conventional power sword. Also, nice to see the bolt pistol pictured there for executing cowards who would dare to flee rather than fight for the glory of the Imperium. There are also new heavy weapon squads, and these feature all the weapons you'd expect to see: mortars, las cannons, heavy bolters, missile launchers, and autocannons. Looks to be a massive amount of customization options here too, and, like the field ordnance batteries from before, these smaller teams are like tiny tableaus in their own right. These previews breathe so much life into the stagnating Astra Militarum and make the whole faction seem much more visually dynamic on the tabletop. There have been other new Astra Militarum units announced prior to Warhammer Day, like the improved Sentinel that's included in the Cadia Stand Box 2. Games Workshop have announced that there are more to come all through October in a month-long celebration of the Imperium, and they've already revealed a Cadian Castellan to bring tactical discipline to the troops. Thank you so much for watching this video, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell to be notified of new videos being released. All in all, these are some exciting developments and upcoming releases for 40k. Alongside these, we can also grab a celebratory model of Bayard's Revenge, a brutal representation of an Empress champion skewering an orc. Do let me know in the comments below what you thought of the previews, and which releases you're particularly excited for. Finally, although nothing official has been disclosed at the time of writing, we received teasers about a Demon in the Machine, with some very Mechanicum-esque footage of what appears to be a Baden surrounded by servo skulls and wiry tendrils. Who or what is this Archaphane? Could this herald the coming of the Dark Mechanicum? There'll be more videos about Warhammer 40k being released in the future, so please do keep an eye out for new content coming soon to JamHammer. In the meantime, there are plenty of other videos available on the channel, including a few that are on screen now for you to click on. Thanks again for watching.